The summit chamber shimmered with refracted starlight, its crystalline walls amplifying every movement into a distorted echo. Delegates from across the Orion Pact sat in tiered circles, their bodies varied in form yet uniform in posture, aloof, measured, certain of their superiority. At the lowest tier, where the latecomers and minor powers were placed, sat the human delegation. Captain Alara Vance kept her back straight, her chin level and her breathing calm, though she felt the weight of dozens of alien eyes appraising her, as if she were some curious pet allowed a seat among its betters. Earth's place in the galaxy was newly won, its fleet still fragile, its colonies barely self-sufficient. Yet Alara had been chosen to speak for them, not because she carried the most medals, but because she had something the others found disquieting, a refusal to yield her voice. The Council called it arrogance. Her crew called it resolve. When the Phyrexian envoy's metallic plates rippled in derision at humanity's proposal for joint exploration, Alara caught the movement. "You mistake recklessness for initiative," the envoy hissed in a machine-cord tone. A ripple of approval coursed through the chamber. The remark was not the first dismissal of the day. Alara rose slowly, letting silence claim attention before her words did. "You all chart the stars with reverence, but when danger stirs, you retreat behind borders. Humanity learned survival in the wilderness of our own world not by retreat, but by confronting storms, hunger, and predators larger than ourselves. We endure because we act." Her statement drew sharp clicks from insectoid diplomats and the low growls of the Saurian delegation. It was not diplomacy. It was defiance. And yet, for a heartbeat, no one interrupted her. At her side, Lieutenant Cameron shifted uneasily. His role was not to speak, but to monitor the pulse of the room, to read currents invisible to Alara. He murmured, almost too low to hear, "They're not used to passion. They don't know how to file it into their hierarchies." The session might have ended in contemptuous laughter had not the chamber's hollow sphere flared alive with crimson warnings. A projection of the Perseid frontier spun above them. Dozens of systems blinking with distress markers. Ships, unknown, vast, and cold, were breaching outer trade routes, their signatures unreadable. Murmurs cascaded like waves breaking on a cliff, but no one shouted. No one dared. Fear stilled even the most arrogant throats. The Council's presiding voice, an ancient entity encased in a tank of shifting bioluminescent fluid, broke the silence. "Containment is advised. Withdraw assets from the threatened sectors. Seal the approaches. End of discussion." Alara's jaw clenched. "Withdraw? You'll abandon entire colonies?" "Expendable." The word emerged without hesitation. To the greater powers, frontier lives were statistics, not stories. Her heart thundered. She remembered Earth's own history, of nations discarding the weak to preserve their illusions of strength. She had sworn not to serve in such silence. If you yield ground at every shadow, you'll have no ground left to stand on. Humanity will not abandon those who depend on us. If you lack the will to act, we will go alone. This time the chamber erupted. Accusations, laughter, warnings of doom all swirled at once. Yet in the chaos, the presiding entity's lights dimmed, then pulsed in slow rhythm. "Very well, Captain Vance. You will lead an expeditionary detachment, joined by those who still cling to curiosity. Consider it an experiment." An experiment. The word stung, reducing her defiance to a test subject in some cosmic trial. Still, it was opportunity, and opportunity was all humanity ever needed. Hours later, aboard the Dauntless, her command ship, Alara stood before her assembled crew, engineers, tacticians, pilots, faces drawn from Earth, Mars, and the far colonies. Each bore the same mix of pride and uncertainty. Around them, alien officers waited, stiff and suspicious, their posture declaring disdain even as protocol bound them to this mission. "We are not here because they believe in us," Alara began, letting her gaze sweep the chamber. "We are here because they expect us to fail. But that expectation has followed humanity from the first fire we lit. Every empire once dismissed us as fragile, violent, or foolish, and yet we endured. We endure still. Beyond the frontier lies danger, yes, but also the chance to prove that we matter, that our voice, however small, can shape the course of this galaxy. Silence lingered. Then Cameron raised a hand in salute, echoed by the rest of the crew. Even some of the aliens shifted uneasily, as though caught by a current they did not understand. When the engines roared to life and the Dauntless broke free of the orbital dock, Elara allowed herself a rare smile. They departed not as saviors, not even as equals, but as challengers to a fate written by others. Whether they triumphed or perished, humanity would leave its mark upon the stars. And far beyond the Council's gaze, something stirred in the darkness, vast and patient, waiting for the first human spark to draw near. That's just under 1,000 words and closes with satisfying hook while setting up the characters, conflict, and mission. Would you like me to continue Section 2 in the same polished style, or would you prefer me to summarize each section first and then expand? The Dauntless moved like a steel arrow through uncharted space, its hull trembling under the strain of distances few had dared cross. The alien officers aboard rarely strayed from their quarters, cloaking their unease in the language of protocol, while the human crew treated every anomaly as a puzzle rather than a curse. The stars outside shifted in strange, unsettling ways, distorted by energies no navigation charts had accounted for, but Captain Elara Vance stood at the bridge with calm defiance. Fear had its place, but not here, not in sight of those who already doubted her command. Lieutenant Cameron kept close, his eyes quick to catch flickers of emotion across the crew. He noticed how the alien representatives, Ambassador Cordes of the Lithari and Tactical Officer Relvek of the Phyrexians, spoke only when formality demanded it. Their disdain had not faded since departure. If anything, the void seemed to amplify it. Elara understood the perspective but refused to indulge it. "They measure us against their own fears," she murmured to Cameron one evening. "But fear makes poor arithmetic. Hope changes the sum." The first derelict appeared without warning, drifting like a phantom among shattered moons. Its architecture bore no resemblance to any known species. Angular frames fused with organic curves, pitted and broken as though gnawed by some unseen predator. The alien officers recoiled, but Elara ordered a boarding party. "We don't turn away from mystery," she said. "We dissect it until it yields truth." Her crew, armored and resolute, pressed into the wreckage with scanners and lights cutting paths through the darkness. What they found made even the veterans falter. Skeletons of creatures larger than men, fused into walls, their bodies twisted as if in the agony of being consumed. The images returned to the bridge silenced even the Phyrexians' usual sneers. Relvek muttered in his rasping tone, "This is a grave, not a vessel. Leave it. Burn it." Yet Elara ordered samples taken, records preserved, every scrap of data archived. Her insistence unsettled the council representatives who monitored from afar, but she did not waver. Knowledge, even when terrible, was a weapon. Days stretched into weeks as the Dauntless pressed further. They encountered more husks, vast stations hollowed to the bone. Colonies stripped of life, their very atmosphere stolen. Every discovery deepened the fissures among the crew. The Lithari argued for immediate return, citing contamination risks. The Phyrexians spoke openly of mutiny, unwilling to throw their strength into what they saw as a doomed human crusade. Even Cameron voiced his unease. "Captain, if their fear curdles into action, we may be fighting two wars, one in space and one in our own halls." Elara did not dismiss him. Instead, she called the human and alien officers together in the strategy chamber. Around the holographic display of the frontier, stars winked out one by one, marking systems already consumed. "You see destruction," she told them, her voice steady. "I see a pattern. This enemy doesn't advance blindly. It selects harvest and leaves nothing. If we retreat now, we guarantee that one day it will reach the heart worlds. The difference is whether we stand as its first obstacle or as its last meal." Relvek's plates rattled in anger. "And what will humans achieve that the old powers could not? You gamble lives like stones on a gaming table." Elara leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "What we achieve is adaptation. Where others rely on doctrine, we improvise. Where others calculate risk, we embrace it. That is how humanity has survived every impossible storm we faced, from plagues to wars to the void itself. We do not endure because we are stronger. We endure because we refuse to accept inevitability." Her words did not win allegiance, but they sowed cracks in the wall of alien certainty. Even Cortez, the Lidhari ambassador who had demanded withdrawal, lingered longer over the holograms, tracing the enemy's path with reflective silence. The turning point came on the edge of a crimson nebula, where they finally encountered the enemy itself. From the gas clouds emerged constructs vast as cities, shapes that shifted between machine and organism, their surfaces alive with consuming tendrils of energy. They moved without haste, inexorable as tides, dismantling a drifting outpost piece by piece. To the aliens, it was confirmation of despair. To Alara, it was the first clear glimpse of an opponent she could fight. She ordered the Dauntless to advance, ignoring the shouts of protest. Against an enemy of such scale, their weapons were gnats against a leviathan. But Alara refused paralysis. She commanded targeting on the energy conduits visible in the construct's shifting exoskeletons. Her gunners unleashed volleys that sparked brief flares of disruption, minor wounds in a beast too massive to notice. Yet those flares mattered. They revealed weakness, however small. The aliens screamed for retreat. Alara instead ordered a feigned withdrawal, draw and construct deeper into Nebula's unstable gas fields. When its energy tendrils brushed against the volatile clouds, the ensuing reaction tore half its body into molten fragments. The ship shuddered from the blast wave, alarms blaring, but when the debris cleared, the impossible had occurred. Humanity had inflicted a wound. For the first time, silence fell not in fear, but in awe. The alien officers looked at her differently. Not with respect yet, but with something perilously close to it. Cameron exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Madness," he whispered, though the edge of pride tugged at his voice. Alara allowed herself no celebration. One crippled enemy was not a victory, only a message. They could bleed, and anything that could bleed could be defeated. She looked across her weary, shaken crew and the silent aliens who now measured her in a new light. "You've seen it," she said quietly. "Hope is not a fool's word. It is a weapon sharper than any blade, and it's one humanity wields without hesitation." As the Dauntless limped from the nebula, its hull scorched but its spirit unbroken, Alara knew the true battle had yet to come. The Council would doubt her still. The enemy would adapt. But a spark had been struck, and sparks, given time and air, became flames. Somewhere beyond the veiled stars, something vast was watching, and for the first time, perhaps it, too, recognized that humanity could not be ignored. This is just under 1,000 words and ends with a strong pivot, a partial victory, cracks forming in alien arrogance, and the looming presence of a larger threat, leaving the reader eager to see how Section 3 escalates. Would you like me to make Section 3 the climactic resolution in a similar length, or should I stretch it toward the full 1,600 words you allocated in your outline? The Dauntless had survived its trial in the Crimson Nebula, yet survival brought no peace. Every scar on its hull whispered of fragility. Every flickering console reminded the crew how thin the line was between daring and destruction. Word of their victory spread unevenly across the stars. Humans celebrated it as proof of resilience, while the Council framed it as reckless fortune unlikely to be repeated. For Captain Alara Vance, the distinction mattered little. What mattered was the enemy had bled, and now both ally and adversary alike knew it. Tension aboard the ship grew sharper, not softer. Alien officers who once scorned humanity now looked at Alara with wary calculation. Respect was too generous a word. It was recognition, edged with unease. Relvek, the Phyrexian tactician, studied her every command as though dissecting a dangerous animal. Cortez, the Lidhari ambassador, spoke less often but lingered on the bridge, eyes shimmering with quiet questions. Only Cameron, steady as ever, offered her unflinching loyalty, though even he admitted unease. "We've set fire to the dark, Captain, but fire draws predators as much as it shields us." Their warning came days later, when long-range sensors picked up the constructs en masse. Dozens of titanic forms moved in eerie unison, their outlines half machine, half nightmare, consuming everything in their path. They were not retreating from their wound in the nebula. They were converging. The enemy had noticed the defiance of a single human ship and answered with an armada. The council transmitted their decision before the enemy even arrived. Withdrawal, evacuation, containment. Entire colonies, vibrant with life, were deemed expendable in the name of strategic preservation. The decree reached the bridge like a cold blade pressed against every throat. Ilera read it aloud, her voice steady, though her crew's fury burned around her. "They've chosen to flee," she said, folding the transmission closed. "So be it, but we will not." Her officers erupted with protest. Some aliens threatened to resign their posts. Others demanded she obey. Ilera silenced them with a single command. "Look at the map." The holographic display bloomed above the table, stars flickering like dying embers. She traced the enemy's path with her hand, and the inevitability was clear. Retreat only delayed the slaughter. We fight now, or we condemn worlds to silence without ever raising a hand. Humanity does not wait for permission to live. It was madness, but it was also truth. Cameron, after a long silence, gave a slow nod. "Then we fight with what we have. We fight like humans." The plan was born from desperation and creativity in equal measure. They would draw the enemy into a dense asteroid field where maneuverability meant survival. Charges would be set to trigger chain reactions, turning the environment itself into a weapon. No doctrine, no training manual sanctioned such recklessness. That was why it might succeed. When the construct arrived, they filled the void like a living storm, tendrils of energy sweeping aside rock and dust. The Dauntless plunged into the asteroid belt, weaving between tumbling stone, while charges detonated in precise rhythm. Entire walls of rock collapsed onto the advancing Leviathans, scattering their unity, forcing hesitation where none had existed before. Alien officers who once derided human improvisation now stared in disbelief as chaos became strategy, and strategy became survival. The battle raged in silence, broken only by the screams of strained metal and the thunder of detonations. The Dauntless buckled under repeated blows, shields failing, hull plating torn away, yet still it danced through stone corridors, each maneuver a declaration of refusal. In the heart of the chaos, Cameron noticed a pattern. The constructs faltered near overlapping explosions, their coordination stuttering as if linked through fragile channels of energy. He related to Ilera, who seized upon the discovery instantly. "Then we sever the link," she declared. "One cut and the tide collapses." They gambled everything on a single colossal asteroid, planting their last charges deep within its fractured core. The Dauntless drew the enemy close, taunting, baiting, until the construct swarmed in overwhelming numbers. At the signal, the charges ignited. The explosion was cataclysmic, a star reborn in miniature, shock waves tearing through the fleet. Energy tendrils writhed and faltered, unity shattered into chaos. For the first time, the enemy broke formation. Through fire and ruin, the Dauntless and its allies struck with everything left, torpedoes, beams, even ramming maneuvers born of desperation. One by one, the constructs fell silent, vast carcasses drifting into the void. When the light faded, silence reigned across the bridge. Against all odds, they had survived, and more than that, they had won. Relvek, trembling, stared at the wreckage. No doctrine accounts for this. No logic explains it. You turn madness into strategy. His voice carried not scorn, but something approaching awe. Ilera did not bask in it. Her gaze remained fixed on the drifting remains, knowing victory was temporary. "We've proven they can be hurt, but we've also told them who we are. They will come again, stronger." Cameron stepped to her side, weary but resolute. "Then they'll find we're stronger too. We don't break, Captain, not while you lead." The crew, human and alien alike, stood in shared silence, united not by allegiance to council decrees, but by the raw memory of survival against the impossible. The galaxy had shifted, and they had shifted with it. Where once humanity was dismissed as reckless, now they were recognized as dangerous, a spark no darkness could easily smother. Ilera let her hand rest on the viewport, eyes locked on the void beyond. "Let them come," she whispered. "They'll learn soon enough what it means to face humanity." Beyond the fractured field of asteroids, the stars waited, cold, eternal, and silent witnesses to the truth that the fight was far from over. That's a complete Section 3, tightly focused at 1,000 words, with Alara, Cameron, Relvek, and the core conflict carried forward to a climax that resolves the immediate battle but makes clear the war has only begun. Would you like me to now refine all 4 sections into a seamless novel-style manuscript, around 4,000 words total, or keep them as standalone structured parts for flexible expansion? The Dauntless returned to port under a shroud of battered glory. Its hull was pocked with scars. Its engines limped, and half its systems barely functioned. Yet the ship was hailed as though it carried the spoils of an empire. Crowds gathered at orbital stations to glimpse the vessel that had faced the impossible and lived. For a moment, humanity stood at the center of a galaxy that had long ignored them. Yet Captain Alara Vance's new adoration was fleeting, and admiration from the Council even more so. The true battle was not merely against the constructs lurking beyond the frontier, but against the inertia powers who still sought to bury their fear beneath bureaucracy. Inside the Grand Chamber of the Council, the atmosphere was more hostile than celebratory. Alien delegates traded accusations over who had failed to act, their voices sharp with panic, poorly hidden as policy. The presiding entity's fluid pulsed with agitation, demanding order, but chaos simmered beneath the surface. Alara stood at the center dais, her uniform torn but her bearing unbroken, and for once she was not immediately dismissed. Every eye weighed her not as a curiosity, but as a potential threat. Proof that the Council's certainties could be wrong. You defied orders, one delegate hissed, its segmented body clicking with disdain. You risked lives without sanction. I preserved lives the Council was willing to discard, Alara answered, her voice measured. If disobedience is required to defend the living, then call me guilty. Murmurs spread like fire through dry grass. Some condemned her audacity. Others whispered of possibility. The Council had always thrived on consensus, but now consensus fractured. And in those fractures, Alara saw a chance. Lieutenant Cameron, standing at her side, leaned in. They're afraid. Afraid of you, of us. That makes them dangerous. They were dangerous long before they noticed us, Alara replied softly. Now they'll choose, cling to fear or embrace change. The debate raged for hours, but no decision was reached. The Council adjourned in disarray, leaving the fate of the galaxy suspended in silence. Yet Alara understood the stalemate for what it was, proof that humanity had forced a question into minds long closed. That question would not vanish, even if they tried to smother it. Later, in the solitude of the Dauntless Bridge, the weight of command pressed heavier than any Council gaze. Reports flooded in. Colonies uniting under the memory of their defense. Alien factions splintering between those who would fight and those who would flee. The galaxy itself seemed to teeter on a blade's edge, and somehow the balance tipped toward her ship. Cameron placed a hand on the railing beside her. "You've started something you can't control," he said. "I never intended to control it," she answered. "I only intended to show it was possible." Before their words could settle, an encrypted transmission broke through the comms, an unmarked signal pulsing with patterns too deliberate to be natural. The crew rushed to analyze it, but Alara sensed its purpose before the translation was complete. The constructs were not silent predators, after all. They were speaking. When the signal resolved, it revealed no voice, no face, only a sequence of images and impressions. Worlds consumed, civilizations erased, fleets shattered. Yet buried beneath the terror was something subtler, a recognition, an acknowledgement. The message ended with a single projection of the Dauntless itself, surrounded by a field of shifting light. The bridge fell silent. Cameron's voice carried the disbelief of everyone present. "They know us. They've marked us." Alara's expression hardened. "Then we've proven we matter, even to them." The reality was grim. The constructs had identified humanity not as prey to be consumed, but as an obstacle to be overcome. Their attention would turn now, fully and deliberately, toward Earth and its fragile colonies. The Council would argue, delay, and bicker, but Alara had no illusions. The fight ahead would not wait for politics. It had already begun. She gathered her crew in the assembly hall, humans and aliens alike, their faces weary yet sharpened by the knowledge of what they had survived. She told them of the message, of the recognition it carried, of the certainty that the enemy now marched toward them. "You wanted proof," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Proof that humanity belongs among the stars. Proof that we can shape destiny rather than be shaped by it. That proof has arrived. They see us now. They fear us enough to face us directly. And that is the highest acknowledgement we could earn." The hall remained still for a breath, then erupted into a thunder of voices, some in fear, others in resolve. Yet beneath it all lay a current stronger than either. Inevitability. The constructs would come. The council might fracture. But the Dauntless would stand ready, even if it stood alone. As the crowd dispersed, Cameron lingered beside her. "We forced open a door," he said quietly. "But what waits on the other side may consume us." Ilera looked once more to the stars beyond the viewport, where darkness seemed to pulse with unseen eyes. "Perhaps," she admitted, "but doors once opened never truly close. And if humanity's fate is to walk into the storm, then we'll walk with our heads unbowed." The stars glimmered, indifferent yet eternal, as the ship prepared for the next call to arms. The first battle had been survived, the second awaited, and beyond it stretched a war that would decide whether humanity was a flicker in galactic history or a flame that no darkness could extinguish. And somewhere in the silence beyond the frontier, the construct stirred again, not mindless, not aimless, but aware. They had marked humanity, and humanity had answered. The true conflict had only just begun. That's just under 1,000 words for Section 4, carrying forward the main characters, amplifying the central conflict, and leaving a strong hook for continuation. Do you want me to map out additional sections 5 to 6 to expand the arc into a full-length saga, or keep the story contained within these 4?